Hello, this is Jason P. Wilson Zero in X-Force, and this is my DC poll list, comic poll list, for the week of September 14th, 2011, and today is the 19th, it is a Monday. And if you watch my Marvel and Image posting, you know that I'm pretty late this time, which I usually am not. I'm usually pretty timely. But I had some things to read, and I wanted to reread a few, and I had a lot of busy stuff going on, so I'm really sorry about that. But first up for my DC is Green Lantern #1. The much anticipated Green Lantern #1. I have been really looking forward to this, and I'll tell you why. Even though I know what's going on with Green Lantern, I have read trades, I discuss, I have friends that read comics, we talk. I also read stuff on the internet, and I watch a lot of, reviews and stuff. So I know what's going on with Green Lantern. Though I have not collected any of the single issues up to this point. So I know a lot of what happened with the Emerald Knight stuff, and recently with the War of the Green Lanterns, and of course I read Brightest Day, and before that Blackest Night. So this was a really good issue. It was a really good issue, but let me get my negative out of the way first. It's a complete continuation of what happened already. There's this complete continuity with the old DCU. I literally don't see anything that is renewed or changed. Maybe the age of the characters, but even then I'm not sure. So, for a new reader, there is going to be a, hey, what happened? Like, if I was brand new and knew nothing about Green Lantern and picked this up, I don't know if I'd be confused, but I definitely would be wondering what I missed. There's definitely a lot of discussion about what happened just an issue ago. So that was the case for a couple of the DC books this week. Now, for readers that are long-term Green Lantern fans, that's nothing but great news. But for a new reader, it's a bit of a downer, because then they have to wonder if they need to go back and read past issues or pick up past trades. Now, I'd recommend everyone to pick up past trades of any story that they're starting into. But, you figure with a whole relaunching and a brand new #1 that you wouldn't have to do that. And with most of the New 52, you don't. But when it comes to Batman and Green Lantern, it looks like you have to. So that's a downer. But that's the only downer. And like I said, for people that have been reading for a while, it's not a downer at all. So I'm happy because I already know what's going on. It definitely motivates me to want to get past trades of the stories that I know about but haven't actually read. So I found this to be a very strong issue. I'm going to say a couple words that might not be the best for little kids, but Hal Jordan really came across to me as a total douche. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I guess I should say jerk. That's better. Hal Jordan's a really cool guy, and I like him, though there were situations like with the whole War of the Green Lanterns where he basically had the help of the whole Justice League, Superman, Batman, just to name a couple, that were willing to help him, and he totally did a D move and totally no, I don't need you, and turned his back to him. And I was like, wow, Hal Jordan, come on, why are you such a jerk? So he's still a cool guy, and cool stuff happened. He killed a Guardian, and because of that, even though he was right, because the Guardian had turned mad and was going to destroy the universe type thing, but the Guardians were afraid that he killed one of them, and even though it had to be done, but regardless, they took his ring away. So we have Hal Jordan with no ring, and he's really down the dumps. I kind of find it interesting to see Hal Jordan, who is always like Mr. You know, everything goes right most of the time. Even though there's a lot of things that go wrong, he always rises to the occasion, and he always like hits a home run, or at least eventually gets there. But now he's like, he doesn't have any money, and he's struggling with the day-to-day stuff that you really hadn't seen him struggle with at all at this point. At least I hadn't. He's got no money, and he's got no income, and things are going bad. So I was feeling for him, but then he meets Carol, and here's a little bit of spoilers here, guys, but he meets Carol, and she thinks he's going to propose to her, but instead he asks if she'll co-sign for him. I mean, come on, man. I know it's like a lot of the guys that have the girl there, they're completely blind to what's going on around them, and his character is kind of like that. He is, the kind of guy, fighter pilot, hero guy who's kind of oblivious to the little things, so I get that. But I don't know, he came off as a total jerk, and that was a bittersweet thing. It was interesting to see him like that, but then I don't like seeing him like that. So it was pretty cool though. But I don't like to feel that way about my main hero guy from Green Lantern. But of course, the big thing in here was Sinestro. So Sinestro is now the Green Lantern of the sector, and he does not want a job. He basically doesn't know what's going on, but he's going to go through the motions anyway. But he's arrogant as heck. I mean, you have two characters here that are completely arrogant. Hal Jordan and Sinestro are completely, up on their soapboxes all the time, thinking that everyone's below them for the most part. Especially Sinestro, he's a villain, so it's even more so with him. So it's really cool to see him in the green again, though. We all know he originally was a Green Lantern, and now he's back. He doesn't really like it. He feels uncomfortable, but he's trying to pretend that I'll deal with this, no problem. But he doesn't like it, and it's a pretty interesting situation. We have two of our main characters completely flip-flopped and upside down, and it's a very uncomfortable but interesting way to have these individuals, and it's a really strong first issue. I'm definitely glad that I'm on board, and I'm looking forward to future issues. Now, Green Lantern was in my saver, but Red Lantern was not. I picked it up, and I liked it so much I added it to my saver. I figured, I wasn't going to do the New Guardians, but I decided not to. And then there's a Green Lantern Corps, but I decided not to. If I was only going to get 2 of the 4, I thought Green Lantern and Red Lantern would be pretty cool. So first up, on the Red Lanterns, the artwork is awesome. Now I want to say about Green Lantern, the artwork is awesome. I mean, I didn't think I needed to say that. It's the same team that has been doing it, and they did a fantastic job. And Jeff Johns is really great, writes Green Lantern like nobody else. So, but with Red Lanterns here, the artwork is exceptional. Wow, it's really attractive. Now I know Red Lanterns from when I read the Brightest Night stuff, but other than that, I didn't really follow them too much. Like what other storylines happened in the main series and in Green Lantern Corps. So I basically, for the most part, even though I know about them, it's a nice new experience for me. Now, reading Green Lantern, I understand it's pretty cool too. You get some really weird alien-like characters, and they're pretty interesting, pretty cool. Immediately, I was like, I'm not a big fan of like the squirrel from the Green Lantern Corps and stuff like that. Though I think it's cool, and I understand why it's done. Green Lantern has some really weird-looking characters, and obviously they're from aliens and they're from space, so they're going to look very different, and that's cool. I'm totally on board with that. But like right away, you're reading about this cat who seems like an interesting character, but I'm trying to get past that he's a a blue cat. But, you know, I'm sure the more I read this, the more I'll end up loving these characters that seem kind of strange to me at first. But you basically have your, I guess you can say your traditional first issue, where our main character is gathering a team together and he's building a team. He's building the Red Lantern Corps, basically. And so, you know, you're being introduced to two characters. And I think that's great, because for me, who doesn't know a ton about the Red Lanterns, and for most people that are new onto the Red Lanterns, who haven't, you know, read Green Lantern before, they probably wouldn't know much about Red Lanterns. So that's great for them. For people that have been reading Red Lanterns for a long time, I can see this just being an okay issue, because it probably doesn't tell you anything that you don't already know. But for me, I really enjoyed it. It was exactly what I wanted out of a first issue. It's getting me to know the characters. You got a little bit going on with these. They're good, but they're bad. I don't know. They're like both. So that's pretty cool. It's like they're very, you know, with the blood coming out of their mouth all the time. It's very interesting, but kind of gross. But it's part of their power. So really cool. Good first issue. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what this first story arc is going to end up ultimately being all about. And again, beautiful artwork. Definitely one of the best parts about this is the artwork. But I definitely recommend, if you're interested, pick up that issue. Okay. Next up is Batman and Robin #1. Now here's the other one that's completely in sync with everything that happened before, not missing a beat, just like Green Lantern. So we now have Damian with his father, Bruce Wayne, for the first time teaming up. Well, not the first time, but first time in a long time. And for me, a big Batman reader, I love that the continuity is 100%. But to new readers, might be a bit, not confusing, but you might feel like there's something you're missing. Because, you know, you are a little bit. But it's still a great jumping on point. And if you hadn't read, you know, Batman and Robin before, it's a great time to jump on. It looks like it's going to be just as good as it ever was, even with Dick Grayson, you know, leaving and becoming Nightwing. You're going to have something very different here. You have Damian with his father. So first off, Damian's all excited because he idolizes his dad, but he hasn't really been working with him in a while, and he's used to Dick Grayson, who is a really nice guy. Okay, let's face it, Dick Grayson's a really nice guy, and he dealt with Damian a way a nice guy would, even though he's a tough guy. So he definitely, you know, gave him tough love often, but he dealt with him in a way that he would. None of that Bruce Wayne would have done at all. Bruce Wayne doesn't play those games at all. So it's really cool to see how much different it is than it was. The dynamic duo has a completely different chemistry now. You basically have Damian Wayne being like, hey, you know, being a total jerk. I guess I'll say that. He's being a total jerk, as always, right? And his father's not taking any of it. And he's like, hey, you know, Dick Grayson, you know, other Batman, he trusted me. And then, well, Bruce Wayne's like, well, I don't know if I can trust you. So you have he's kind of proven himself to his dad, but he's kind of getting the dad, you're a jerk kind of vibes. And Bruce Wayne's definitely not sure of his son. He needs his son to prove himself. And Damian Wayne doesn't feel like he should have to prove himself. He feels like he already did with Dick Grayson, so, you know, why should he have to do it with his own father kind of thing. But they're very estranged, so it's a really interesting stuff that's happening here. Definitely a relationship study, and I really enjoyed it. And as a Batman fan, all Batman fans absolutely must get. And if you're just interested, it's still a really good issue to pick up. Very, very good. And next up is Batwoman #1. Wow. Man, have I been looking forward to this. I absolutely loved the Batwoman story arc that was on Detective Comics a while back. Loved it. Love the artist. Love the writer. And I love how they do Batgirl. So when the Zero issue came out a long time ago, I ate it up. I just ate it up, and I was loving it, and I couldn't wait till issue number 1. And then it was delayed and delayed and delayed, and they decided to hold it back from the relaunch. Okay. It's finally here. And what that means is all these delays is that we probably won't have any interruptions, even though I've heard that sometimes they're late. I don't think we're going to have any problem with that, because they're like, I think 3 issues ahead of themselves. So, and that's great, because this is fantastic art, really interesting story beginning already in 1 issue. And I love this character. This character, Batwoman, she is the freshest new hero to come in a while. Now, I know she's technically not very new, but compared to all the other characters, she's pretty new. And definitely not well known to people that aren't reading the Bat books. So, this character is a really refreshing, interesting, challenging character. She, she's gay, and that really has nothing to do with. It's kind of like, how Apollo and the Midnighter, they're gay, right? But like in Stormwatch, but at this point anyway, it's not really an issue. Like, it's they just are who they are, and I like how it's handled. And same here with Batwoman. She's always handled really well. She's a fantastic, interesting person, very complex, someone you can really root for, who happens to be gay, which just makes it more interesting when you're reading about her. Awesome first issue. I cannot recommend this more. Now, I'm not going to say what my pick of the week is anymore during my my reviews, my comic poll list reviews. I'm just going to post what they are, and so people can maybe guess or be surprised. But this was a fantastic issue, and it's definitely a contender. Awesome. Recommend it to anybody and everybody. Now, next up here is one that came out already, but I didn't get the issue when it came out. They were completely out at my comic store, so I had to order it online. And I found this company that really, I ordered 1 issue, and it came quadruple protected. And the one thing I have with buying stuff, especially brand new stuff online, comic books, is I always wonder how they're going to get to me. This thing was protected like no other comic book I've ever gotten before. So I know that it was exactly the same way as if I picked it from the comic book store myself. So I'm saving them to my future purchases of comic books, because they even gave me a really mint issue. This isn't near mint, this is mint. But anyways, let's get back to the comic. Batwing. Wow. I was impressed. I originally was not going to buy this, guys. I was not going to buy this at all. Everybody, I was like, I have too many Bat books. Okay, Batwing will be one that I will not read, right? So it was the one that I didn't get in my saver. And it's one of my favorite Bat books. I know it's just the first issue, but man, really cool first issue. First of all, the artwork is very different. And when I say different, I don't read a lot of comics that have any type of art style that is like this. I think his name's Ben Oliver. Really interesting, and it really kind of made me captivated. Really captivating artwork. Beautifully drawn. Now, of course, Winnick, he was the same guy that wrote one of my favorite animated features of all time. That's Batman Under the Red Hood. And he's also writing the Red Hood ongoing, and story series that comes out soon. So I knew the writing was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good, but I really wasn't expecting it to be this strong. This first issue is one of the strongest first issues of any of the New 52. Now, when I say that, I mean of new characters. Like, of all the new characters that are being introduced, this is by far the best one so far. I don't count Batwoman, by the way, because she's more established. But awesome first issue, and I definitely recommend anyone who is interested to pick up first issue immediately. Go find it. I wouldn't even wait for a trade. It's that good. Very impressed. And next up, look, if you haven't figured this out by now, DC is just doing an awesome job this week. These issues are just... I enjoyed every single one. And when I say enjoyed, I mean I literally read it more than once. I enjoyed it so much. All these issues. And Demon Knight was so refreshing. Okay, obviously, this character is very established, and a lot of people love this character, Demon Knight. So he's a really cool character, and I always enjoyed reading about him in the past. But I always felt like he was out of place. Like, I always felt his character, even though he was awesome, was out of place. And I never really liked his costume too much, because I felt, you know, it didn't fit. Like, for the time period he was in. It was like a superhero-ish, but his character wasn't really superhero-ish kind of character. Anyways, that's my only issue I ever had, but I always liked them. So what they do, they took this character that I felt was always out of place, and they put him in a time period that he fits perfectly in. So, for a better lack of the word, it's like a fantasy setting in the Middle Ages in the DCU. Like Gotham and all that. This is like way back when, and I absolutely love this issue. It was like, from all the superhero books I've been reading, and I'm not complaining, but it's a lot of, you know, superhero-y stuff. Here's a superhero book that really isn't a superhero book. It's a fantasy book, and I love reading fantasy stuff. I look for good fantasy stuff. The problem is there's a lot of fantasy comics out there that stink. They're just okay, or they're not good at all. And there's rare exceptions. When I read a comic that's pretty good, like One, which I'm reading now, which is a fantasy book by an independent studio, I'm enjoying it more than I should, just because I was really hungering for a good fantasy book. You know, Dritz came out from the IDW recently, but I didn't pick it up. I thought the artwork looked pretty bad, but I was interested. But with this, I've got my fix. I have my fantasy fix, because this was a pleasure to read. The characters were interesting, and there's a lot of them being introduced, and you can really see where this is going. This character fits perfectly into this time period. Man, Demon Knight is definitely a home run, and the writing, the artwork, everything is so good. I can't say enough good things about this, but again, I'm a little biased because it was so different in things I've been reading. I just enjoy the heck out of it. A very fun and enjoyable comic, and if that's what you're looking for, this is definitely the comic book for you to pick up. Alright, next up is Suicide Squad. Now, I never read Suicide Squad before. I knew of them. I did pick up a few issues, but I never read it regularly. And the main thing was, I really wasn't into Suicide Squad. I wasn't. Now, I read Thunderbolts, and you can kind of say they're very similar, or at least they kind of mirror off each other. So, you know, that wasn't what drew me to this book. If it was just Suicide Squad with a bunch of characters that I didn't know too well, I wouldn't have picked it up. It was all about Harley Quinn. I love Harley Quinn. I think she's an awesome character, and I was really interested reading her in a setting that she hasn't been in a while. She's on a team, and it is kind of like Thunderbolts, where they're bad guys, but they're not handled as nicely as S.H.I.E.L.D. handles the Thunderbolts. They're handled very well, and they're rewarded well. These guys are really... they're handled like, you know, very dangerous criminals, and they're harshly handled. But right away, it definitely is. This is a very edgy comic, guys. This has a dark tone to it, absolutely. And Harley Quinn and Deadshot and even Sharking there. They're really cool. Like, my two favorite right now at this point is definitely Harley Quinn and Deadshot. Awesome characters, and I'm really enjoying that part of it. I can't really say too much again about this one without spoiling it. I mean, I try not to do too many spoilers in my reviews, but let's just say they go on their first mission, and then they find out something that resets the whole bar of what they thought they were doing. Okay, so really cool, definitely edgy. This is probably one of the more edgy comics coming from DC that I've read. Definitely. I wouldn't say it's for young kids, but you know, teening up, it's a really strong book. And if you're a Harley Quinn fan, you have to pick it up. The artwork is really pretty. I mean, it's really beautiful artwork, and it has a style kind of like a, I don't know, almost like there's paint in there. I can't really explain it without showing it, but it's a really beautiful art style, and I'm really enjoying that part of it. Probably the most is the art. The storytelling, though, is very solid, and the person that's handling these characters, they really seem to know the characters, yet they've written them really fresh. They feel fresh. Even though they're established, they're fresh characters. I really enjoyed this comic, and like all the other DCs, they're all ones I'm keeping and continuing. And last up for my DC books is Superboy #1. Now this was a really big question mark for me, because I wasn't sure. I mean, especially with the picture. The picture has little to do with what's going on, at least at this point, but I enjoyed this very much. Now, I didn't enjoy it as much as some of my favorites this week, but I definitely liked it, and I definitely going to continue with it. What I like most about Superboy is restarted. Okay, he's restarted, and he's still, you know, a clone between Superman and like Luthor, and you get to see him bald in here, so it's kind of cool because he looks more like Lex, but he's very much changed than the Superboy we used to know, and that's a good thing. He's to me, he came across like the Superboy from Young Justice, from the animated series and from the ongoing comic affiliated with the animated series. He's not quite that, but he's like a combination between that Superboy and the Superboy that we knew from the old DCU. He's like right in between there. He has a lot of the characteristics I like from the Superboy from Young Justice. I really prefer that Superboy, so I like that this new reinventing of Superboy is leaning in that direction. I like that quite a bit. The art was good, the writing was solid, and I definitely am on board for Superboy for now. I definitely enjoyed it. And I enjoyed all the DCs this week or last week. And all of them I recommend if you're interested. Now, obviously, that's a lot of books to pick up, so I would only, if you're interested in those characters, they're definitely recommendations for me. There's only a few that even if you're not interested, I would still recommend, and I'll have those in my Pick of the Week segment. Yeah, so with that said, those are my DCs for last week, and I will definitely be posting this week's comics on time. I have a question for you guys. Have you read any of these comics from DC? And how are you enjoying them? Do you think the same way I do? Have you been really enjoying the heck out of the new DC launch? There were a few that I didn't care for, but I have been more pleased than not pleased, and it's going to be a hard decision seeing which ones I'm going to keep indefinitely. So, with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.